Well, hello, Cash Crew, and welcome back to another episode of Cash Talks with me, your host, Samora Cash. I'm here at Dude IDK Studios, and we are about to get into it today with my extra special guest here, someone that you all know and love and have seen before. It's my dear friend, Kameron
Oh,
Tyler.
wow. That was such a nice introduction.
I
Thank you.
know. Well, I am
Hi.
so excited. In case some of you don't know Cameron, we have been knowing each other for quite some time now. And
Mhm.
we even made a song last summer, the bop of the summer, as we like to call it. Let's Mambo Poppy, which is on all streaming platforms in case you want to check it out and give us some more love and streaming vibes in your life. So,
Yes.
with that being said, I feel like we're just going to jump right into it and just get into it today.
Jump in.
Jump in. Speaking of,
Speaking
my
of
other song on
songs,
Spotify.
okay, discography.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know I was Beyonce already.
You are.
Anyways,
You are.
but I am just so excited that Cameron's here. Cameron has been such an important person in my life, especially just on my journey as I have begun drag and just kind of really gotten into the scene. And I think I always say meeting people is never a mistake. I meet
Mm.
people at the right time, exactly when I should. And it just gives me so much joy and just I'm so thankful for Cameron and I'm glad that you're here joining me
I
today.
am so glad to be here. Look at this. The manifestation of manifestation.
I
Iconic.
know. So
Yeah.
backstory is that Cameron and I had talked a while back when we were
Mhm.
releasing our song and we were like thinking about doing a podcast together actually. And then Cameron has been busy with some other things, which we'll get into here in just a little bit. But with that being said, we kind of decided to just do our own thing. And so I was like, well, I still think I'm going to take it and run with it and do this podcast because it just feels right.
Thank God.
And now here we are.
Here we
Is it
are.
so wild to be sitting here?
It's kind of wild to be sitting here, but it's kind of to be expected
Yeah,
because, well, first of all, we have planned to do so many things, and we just might. You never know.
this is true.
We did do the song. We almost did a music video. We almost did a podcast together. We've talked about doing some other stuff together, some other music stuff,
Absolutely.
songwriting, stuff like
Yes.
that. But you never know what's going to come to fruition. But nothing ever shocks me too much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Cameron is such an amazing writer. I mean, just in all shapes and forms between books and music. And I always am like, hey, listen, if you want to be my future ghostwriter and we can work this out
Girl, I'll
together,
do
we
it.
got this.
Yes.
So I am just so excited to kind of dive in and chat about all the things. So first and foremost, I want to dive in with Cameron, let you all get to know him a little bit better, just a little backstory. Yeah, anything that you feel like you want to share up front that the listeners might want to know about you.
Well, it's so funny because I always say I'm just like a nobody that does shit. But I like honestly, we did our song together, so that's one thing, I guess.
Yeah.
And before that I made music just for the sake of doing it, not because I even want to like make music, but just because I believe if you feel like doing something, you should do it.
Absolutely.
So the music I've done, I wrote a book. I published my first book during the pandemic, a young adult novel, Lucas with a K. And so I like writing. I just got done writing my second book, so and I'm sure we'll talk about it. But I like writing, I like music. Um we were gonna do a podcast together, and so I'm so excited that I still get to do it, but I didn't have to do any of the work. This is like
Yes.
actually my dream, just coming on here and then going away. Um, but yeah, I like doing stuff. Samora and I met a year and a half ago,
Hmm.
and I was at a drag brunch that she was performing in, and I just remember watching you. The electricity. I mean, it's what you're known for. It's
Right.
the Samora Cash energy. And I was sitting at this drag brunch just like, who the fuck? Who the actual fuck is that? And so I remember afterward, I was like, can I just stop you? Can I just tell you I love you? And you're like, oh my God, I love you too. What's your name? And then I was like, I'm Cameron with a K. And then you said, oh, my real name's Cameron with a C.
Yes.
And that's like where we first bonded.
Yes.
And then didn't see each other again for a long time. And then I literally just sent you a message. And this is where I realized we're the same.
Yes.
Where I messaged you and I was just like, I think I want to make a song. I want you to be on it. I know we've never even like hung out before, but like I feel like I know you just from your energy. Like it's so real.
Yeah.
And then you wrote back and you were just like, I'm ready. Tell me when and where. And then we did it.
Yes.
So I'm spontaneous like you. You're spontaneous like me. It's perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's who I am. I'm just a nobody that does shit. And this is currently the shit I'm doing, and I love it. And it's more as friends.
Absolutely. And I would not ever say that you're a nobody. At this point, come on now. You have done so many amazing things. Because one thing that I love about Kameron that I've always just like admired is kind of like he was saying, but he's always down for whatever's next. Always down for, you know, whether it be music, whether it be writing something, anything that you know, comes to mind, Cameron's like, yes, I'm going to do it. And if no one listens or everyone listens, it's still just as great.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
I
that's
don't
what
care.
I love about you. You're just like so great with that. And I truly believe, like, as you were touching on too, like, fate has a weird way of finding itself and bringing people together. And like my legal name out of drag is Kameron. And so like the fact that we're both Kameron at the end of the day is like,
I know.
Okay, now like what are the chances? But Kameron with a C is me and Kameron with a K is you.
Me.
But that also works because I'm Samora Cash with a K.
I know. And even though I'm not a drag queen and therefore will never be your drag daughter in the House of Cash, I still feel like I'm in the House of Cash.
Yeah.
Cami Cash.
Yeah. You're like a honorary member.
I'm the weird uncle or whatever, but I don't give a shit. That's fine with me.
You're like the behind the scenes uncle. Like you're the one who's making stuff happen for us as the family.
I will be totally behind the scenes. Happy to be.
Yeah.
Ghostwriter for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other thing we have in common is we don't really care about anyone else's opinions. Well, like you said, it doesn't matter if nobody watches. It doesn't matter if no one listens or nobody reads the books or whatever. It's at the end of the day, we do things for us, and we happen to know that other people do respond to it.
Absolutely.
And, you know, some people respond positively, some people respond negatively. Recently, of course, there's been a lot of people responding negatively. But at the end of the day, I think we're the same in that we're like, you can respond positively, you can respond negatively, you cannot respond at all, but I'm still going to do my own thing.
Right. And I feel like what I've realized, you know, especially just in the last couple of weeks I'm like kind of in one of those weird periods where, you know, a lot of my career is taking off and I'm getting to do a lot of these amazing things. I mean, up until I think really launching last year with performing with Todrick and then performing with Kesha and now coming out and having my own House of Cash, and now having my own podcast. It's like I'm in this area of my life right now where like my grind is so heavy and like my focus is so direct that it's starting to really get to people. And, you know, that's kind of, I think, what you were alluding to is like, it's just interesting when you're really trying to follow your own path and your own journey, how that happens. Like how all these people suddenly out of nowhere just decide to gang up on you and hate on you. It's crazy.
You have to wonder why.
Right.
You have to, what I told you earlier is that people wouldn't be making remarks if you were unremarkable. And ultimately, the worst thing would be to be ignored. So them deciding to come out of nowhere and do these unprovoked, and truly they were unprovoked.
Yes.
And trust me, I investigated. I wanted to know the source of it because I saw, and let's call it what it was cyberbullying.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I saw it and I invested because I was like, where did this start? It literally just started from someone posting some nonsense onto their Facebook page of all places.
Yeah.
And oh God, it's so gross. But at the same time, my opinion of it is it means that you're doing something right, because nobody does that unless they're upset about it. And the only way that someone would be upset about you thriving is if someone is scared that they're not going to thrive.
Right.
So at the end of the day, I mostly feel sorry for them.
Right.
I won't name names, but I told you that's because I literally don't remember their name. I don't remember the girl's name.
It's okay. They're not that relevant.
They're not
anyways.
that well. They're clearly not that relevant,
Right.
which is probably why they're upset in the first place. So thoughts and prayers to her.
Yeah, I mean, drink your water and stay blessed, I guess.
Stay blessed.
You know? But
yeah.
it's crazy to me the fact that people, the levels that people will stoop to just to kind of either think that they're going to get ahead of you or whatever that case is. And I always say, we've seen it for years now, and if you haven't known yet, you will know as this podcast goes along. I'm like the biggest Beyonce fan in the entire world, like
Hmm.
literally biggest Beyonce fan. So we all have the same 24 hours as Queen Bee. Okay, so like
That's right.
just because I'm out here marketing myself, doing these things that like are important to me, that are dreams of mine, it doesn't mean that someone else can't, do their own thing and slay in their own way.
And
And
by the
yeah,
way, you're doing your own thing, but you don't ever do it at anyone else's expense. I
right.
think that's why else I was so annoyed.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I know she didn't come for you. I know she didn't do this
Right,
first.
right.
But at the end of the day, whatever.
Yeah.
Thoughts and prayers to
Yeah.
her.
Thoughts and prayers
God bless.
continued.
God
Yeah.
bless. And we're still here doing our shit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I wanted to kind of get into
Yeah.
what kind of your journey has been over the last year, over
Okay.
kind of just like things that you've kind of realizations that you've had for yourself. I know it's going to be kind of important to touch on and talk about your sobriety and like
Yeah.
that being a huge part of your life. So just kind of like walk us through, talk to us kind of what that's been like for you.
Okay. Well, the sobriety specifically, I didn't know that I was going to do it. It was not a planned thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was this past April, so it was like April 24th. And I literally just had too crazy of a Sunday. And for like the past 3 years, my doctor has been like, you need to drink less. You need to
Mm-hmm.
drink less. You need to
Mm-hmm.
drink less. I have like these elevated liver enzymes and fatty liver, whatever. And I am someone, and I don't know, maybe you're the same way. I think some people are like this and some people aren't. I'm so bad at lowering levels of things.
Yes.
I'm an all or nothing kind of girl,
Yes.
always have been. So I'm
Yes.
like, if I'm going to drink, I'm going to drink.
Right.
And when I decide to stop, then I will stop.
Yeah.
And so I had too crazy of a Sunday. I won't get into everything that occurred, but it was very painful the next day when I had to wake up for work on a Monday.
Mhm.
I could barely get out of bed, and I was so unwell mentally and emotionally and
Mhm.
physically. And I have no idea why it was that particular day, because it certainly wasn't the first time I was ever hungover. But I just was like, I don't think I'm ever going to drink again. And just like that, I literally never drink again. It was very strange. And at first, I was just going to do like a week, because I was like, well, I say that now, but I've said it a million times. And,
Mhm.
by the next weekend, I'm drinking. But for whatever reason, it was in April that I just was like, no, I think after a week, I felt good. After 2 weeks, I felt better. And then I was just like, yeah, there's no need to do it anymore.
Right.
Um, I do think a lot of that was because I was in the middle of writing my second book, which the first book is fiction,
Yes.
and we'll talk about it, but
Yeah.
it's a teen fiction book about a boy who's like a senior in high school, and he has this tumultuous year, and it's horrible. But then in March this year, my friend Chelsea called me on the phone, and she was turning 30, and she was like, I'm turning 30. Do you have any advice for me about going into my 30s? And I was like, yeah, probably. And so we just were like talking about things that I feel like I've learned.
Yeah.
And this was in March, so I was still drinking then.
Mhm.
But at the end of the call, she was like, you could literally write a book about all this stuff that's gone on in your life, like in your 20s and stuff. And that's when she met me. And it's been a roller coaster. And so I started writing like a memoir in the spring. And then somewhere, I think, in writing that is when I coincidentally stopped drinking.
Mhm.
Except for I don't really think it was a coincidence. I think it was really intertwined.
Yeah.
Because I have done therapy.
Mhm.
I did 5 years of therapy, and it was like very helpful, and I'm thankful for therapy. I believe in therapy. I tell everyone they should go to therapy.
Mhm.
Some people more than others.
Yes.
Our unnamed friend on Facebook should probably go to therapy.
Several people we know should
Several
probably
people
go to
should probably
therapy.
go to therapy. It would
Yeah.
benefit them. But there was something about, and this is my new thing that I tell everyone they should do. There was something about writing down like everything in my life in order.
Mhm.
I don't know, and I don't know if you've ever done it, but I recommend it to literally everybody now.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like a cause and effect thing that I felt like I could see the cause of every traumatic event that happened in my life and every way that I ever reacted to it. I felt like I could understand more looking at it in chronological order. And so I think that helped a lot with
Yeah.
not drinking. And then I have had like crazy supportive friends. Like,
Yeah.
you have been so supportive through
Absolutely.
the whole thing. And I feel like, I have to say, I'm pretty impressed that most of the bars here, I don't really feel pressure to drink at. I
Right.
mean,
Mhm.
I feel like in some environments you feel really pressured to drink. Um, and maybe it's just like the groups I hang out with at the bars, but I don't ever really feel pressured. And as long as I have like a glass of club soda in my hand, but it's been completely worth it
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's for everybody. I don't think everybody needs to stop drinking.
Absolutely.
Um, but that's been a huge thing for me, yeah, this year. And I'm just at the end of the day appreciative of everyone who's been supportive.
Absolutely. And I
Cause
feel like just being your friend and being around you and just watching you like on social media and all the things. And I know you had also taken a break from that for a while as
yeah,
well to
yep.
kind of, hone in on what you needed to do. But just by watching you in general, I think like there's a different glow about you. There's a different like energy coming from you. And not that I ever thought that you were like messy or like that you were like doing all these like unsafe things by any means, but
Yeah.
I think that when you made that decision to really
hmm
decide, okay, like this isn't what's best for me mentally, or this isn't what's best for my health, like it just, I don't know, there's like a new kind of glow about you, I feel like, in a way.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
I definitely feel that way.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think that the other thing is that the older I get, I guess, I don't want to be I don't want to go into the next chapters of my life doing this all of the same things that I did
Absolutely.
in previous chapters, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that this is just one of the ways that I will evolve.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this before in the
Yeah.
ways that we always want to keep improving ourselves.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think it's an improvement that everybody has to make, but for me, it improved my quality of life. And
Absolutely.
so for me, it's not really about becoming like anti alcohol or anything
Right.
so much as, doing something that is good for me,
Yeah.
like mostly for my mental health, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been great.
Well,
It's
and
been
like
really
I
great.
feel like for me, like I was I'm not someone who really drinks a lot anyways. Like
Yeah.
I just that's just not me because I know how hard that like I perform and how hard I work and like I just don't have time for hangover days. Like it's just
You
like
really
it's
cannot.
not an option, okay? Like
No.
I was hungover I think on what day was it? Sunday.
hmm
And I was like, "Oh, wow. This hits a little different at almost 31 now and these are the reasons that I don't drink, you know?"
Yeah.
But it's just like I've done all that. I lived in Chicago in my 20s. I lived in New York City in my 20s. Like I did all that. I
You
was
did.
face down, ass up in a bar somewhere. You know what I mean? But with that being said, like I
Yeah.
just feel like I've done a lot of that. So now, like you were kind of touching on too, is like now it's time to kind of like do things a little different. It doesn't mean
hmm
that I can't let loose or that we can't let loose in our own ways, but I think just kind of having a different direction of what we want
Yeah.
is helpful for sure.
100%. And like you said, the older that we get, the harder it is to be hungover. And
Yeah.
there's just so much shit I still want to do.
Yeah.
And I know you're the same way as me in that way.
Yes. Yes.
And, I think the other thing that we have in common is that the older we get, we also are both feeling like first of all, we're both anti-children. We don't want real children, but
No.
and I don't want drag children, obviously. I'm not a drag mother, but just like I feel like I want to be more present for, I guess, other people now. I don't know how to
Yeah.
describe it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I have to say, like, I admire so much what you're doing right now with House of Cash. Like, I have questions about this
Yeah.
actually.
What
So
questions do you have?
you recently, and we really haven't had the chance to talk since you made this announcement
No, we got
because, I
nothing
mean,
but
we knew
time.
that we were doing this, but we just haven't gotten together. So you have started your own drag family, which I have invited myself into as the weird uncle. And your first drag daughter is Raina Cash.
Yes.
And I was just telling you before we started filming that she is so clearly your daughter.
Yeah.
And you were telling me, and I think that this will surprise a lot of people, that this style that she has and this energy that she has, I was like, have you been training this girl? Because she is so much like you.
Yeah.
And you were telling me that no, it's kind of like the chicken before the egg thing, that's actually what drew you to her.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about that. Like, I want to hear the story of how this came to happen.
Yeah, no. So really, I have been saying this for as long as I can remember, like since I started drag, but I was like, I'm never gonna be in a house and I'm never gonna form one. I said that forever. I was like,
Yeah.
it's not for me. I want to do my own thing. I'm one of one. Like, no, yeah, like period. And I don't know, like as you know, and as we've talked about, like I'm such a huge person on energy. Like
Yeah.
I can feel energy, I can feel like my friends' energy, like people that I surround myself with. It's just something that I'm so able to pick up on.
Mm-hmm.
And Raina came to my show at Hamburger Mary's here in Denver for my open stage night show, Cherry Pop, that I host every month, twice a month. And she came a year ago in February, so we're almost at a year now at this point. And the very first time I watched her perform, I was just I think my jaw just hit the floor.
Yeah.
I just was like, never in my life have I watched someone besides my queen bee that like completely takes my breath away, kind of in like a
Yeah.
in a crazy way. Like obviously I've seen other drag performers that I absolutely love, but watching her, someone that I had never met before, kind of just step onto a stage for the first time and deliver what she delivered
Yeah.
was insane. And like I said, it was not a plan for me. It wasn't anything that I had like really thought about doing. But
Mm-hmm.
as months and months continued on and I watched her evolve and get stronger and more confident and brave, and she would come into my dressing room and like kiki and talk and just have, banter with me, I was like, this girl's gonna turn me into a
That
mother.
is insane.
And so yeah, I mean, I haven't taught her anything. Like she
Wow.
immediately just came out guns blazing, much like myself. I
Mhm.
just did that very same thing. Like
Mhm.
the energy was electric from the jump. And so yeah, just like watching her. And then, one of my best friends, Brandon, he was like, there's literally no way that you could have picked a better name for your first daughter. Like Raina,
Yeah.
as in like raining cash. Like
Yeah.
it's just it's insane that like the universe brought her to me and then that was her name already. So yeah.
That is just, I mean, it worked out great.
Yeah.
I think the main thing that I've seen people saying is that's your daughter.
Yeah.
Like the energy is there. I really sincerely thought that you must have trained her, but that's kind of amazing that she already had that kind of inherent
Yeah.
drive.
Yeah.
That's really
She's just my
crazy.
blue ivy. It's fine.
She's just your blue ivy. Oh, and I loved the promo, everything about you being pregnant. Wow, that's
Yes.
amazing. My next question is do you see the house expanding?
I do. I did tell Raina though that I was like, I think in the beginning, I don't like, for me, it's never going to be a big house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I am a big person on numbers, as most people know about me. Like 4 is my lucky number, 4 is my magical number. Like it's just my birthday's 4/4, so it's like
Yep.
I'm just surrounded by the number 4. So with myself included, that means I'm only going to have 3 other daughters. Like
Yeah.
and that is it. And Raina's already taken one of those spots, so that means there's only 2 left. Like I want to have a small but mighty and effective house, and I want it for different reasons than a lot of other people do. Like I feel like sometimes drag houses are created to, I don't know, like be something that you're not, or to try and, I don't know, present yourself or be mean or whatever. That's just not me. Mine is like, let's continue what I've already started doing, which is like my activism and speaking up on social issues and, spreading love and light. Like that's all me. So like, why not add additional people who share that same like thing that I have and bring that forward so that like we can just be 4 of us one day. And it's like, dang, like the House of Cash is onto something that nobody else is on. Like that's like
Yes.
my idea and goal for it, really. So
Small
it's like,
but mighty.
yeah,
The
absolutely.
condo of cash.
The condo
You don't even
of
need a whole
cash.
house. You just need a condo.
Yes,
I think that's amazing.
Yes, the cash tent,
The
if you will.
cash tent. Find us on Colfax with a K.
Yeah, we're your next Coleman. Isn't that a brand of tents?
Oh my
maybe?
God. Yeah, with a K.
Coleman with a K.
Coleman Cash.
I'm dead.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's amazing. I think
Thank
it's
you.
so good. I think that you have so much to share, especially with how to be
Yeah.
like a good person.
Yeah.
Because like you said, a lot of these houses, from what I'm seeing, recently are truly just clicks above all else.
Right.
And there's so much more about status than actually doing something good.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, if small but mighty, that's the way to go as long as like it's the purpose is there. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
And I feel like that's what it should be about.
Exactly. And like from literally the first conversation I had with
Yeah.
Raina, I was like, these are my expectations. This is like what I want. This is what I want this to be. And it is okay if those things don't line up with you. And I made that very clear. But her feedback and the way that she was able to kind of deliver on her answers and things, I was kind of like a little principal drill sergeant in that
Oh, I
little
can
moment.
imagine. I can imagine Mama
but
Cash.
but I have expectations, and I wouldn't be me and I wouldn't be doing something like this if I didn't set an expectation. So that's kind of the whole basis around it, for sure.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I know everyone is just waiting to see what's next.
Oh yes, well, they're gonna have to stay tuned.
Stay tuned for the story.
Absolutely. Well, I also want to jump back to you and
Okay.
like, I know that you have Lucas with a K, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
And so like kind of walk me through like what kind of sparked that idea, what the basis of like, I don't know, just everything that it took to kind of produce that, which I have the book myself at home with a very
You
special message in
You
it. So,
do.
yeah.
Yeah. So the crazy thing is, I got done writing it and I published it during the pandemic, but I started writing it 10 years before that.
Okay.
And when I was in high school, I'm so stereotypical in the sense that I was the gay boy obsessed with my English teachers.
Yeah.
And one in particular, Miss Fetland. And so I had her twice in high school, but the first time was freshman year. And on the first day of freshman year of high school, she made us all like write a little essay with goals that we had. And we had to do like a short-term goal and a long-term goal. And I loved writing stories since I was 7 years old. I had a typewriter in my closet and I used to write stories about the Titanic when I was like in elementary. And so for my short-term goal, I said something like, I don't know, I want to draw more this year. But for my long-term goal, freshman year of high school, I said, I want to publish a book by the time I'm 30 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So I started writing a story senior year of high school in my creative writing class, just like about a boy who gets on a bus and like leaves his small town and goes to, it was very generic, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And then like in college, I read it again and I was like, I should turn this into the book. And I would always do like a little bit at a time and then I would stop. And then I would write a little bit like 6 months later and then I would stop. And then like a year later, I would write a little bit more and then I would stop. And, RuPaul talks about the inner saboteur. It was a lot of that in my 20s. And I know that you know about it too, is like the self-doubt.
Yes.
And just saying like, who am I to do this?
Yes.
And luckily both you and I have wildly overcome this little voice in our head. But at the time, I just kept being like, who am I to have a physical book in my hands? Like, I don't know. I just don't. I feel like I have to get a degree in creative writing before I can do that. Or I have to like publish a short story somewhere before I'm allowed to do that. And it was only during the pandemic when everything was shut down. And frankly, even though obviously COVID was a horrible thing, I'm not saying that COVID was great, but for me and for like my mental health, the lockdown was like the best time of my life. March to May of 2020, I was in my studio home alone, thriving.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know this about me, but I am not an extrovert. I am an introvert. I am so drained by interacting with people. It doesn't mean I don't like it. I love it so much.
Yeah.
But it drains me. So when I was home alone, locked in my house, but I knew everyone else was also locked up, so I had no FOMO. I was in the best mental spot of my life. I don't think I probably peaked for my whole life.
Right.
And so it was at that time when I did like so much self-reflection and I was just like, who am I to write a book? Literally, there's a pandemic happening outside right now. I better just do this.
Yeah.
In the beginning phases of COVID when we all thought we were going to die from COVID. And so I was in that mindset. Like I literally was scared because that's the way that it seemed. And I think that's what pushed me to finally write the other half, because it was at that point 10 years and halfway done. And I wrote the second half in like a month.
That's
and then
amazing.
I just self-published it on Amazon because I finally felt like I didn't have to wait for anyone else's stamp of approval to move forward.
Yes.
Which
And if
you
there's
know all about that.
I was gonna say I don't wait on nobody's stamp of
You
approval.
can't wait for anyone else. That's like when I
Yeah.
first really learned that lesson.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's something you and I definitely have in common.
Yeah.
And then it was great. And it's actually quite easy to self-publish a book on Amazon. Like, I don't think I want to do that for the second book, but for the first book, it was like a great way to have a physical copy of my book in my hands, and people can buy the book paperback or on Kindle, or I read an audiobook version on Audible. Like, it was actually a very user-friendly, free way to get my book out. And so that was like kind of I guess liberating in a way,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it was like, oh yeah, I've done that now. And so doing it again actually seems so much less intimidating.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really a matter of telling myself that I'm allowed to do that
Right.
without anyone else telling me that I'm allowed to do that. You know what I mean?
And I feel like so many times, like, that's what we get bogged down in doing. Like, we get so bogged
Yes.
down in, like, either waiting for someone to give us the green light or thinking that we can't do it or whatever it is. But sometimes I will always say this, and I think I even, like, alluded to it in my intro, but it's like, sometimes you just need to press record. Like, press record in
Yes.
your life, press record in what you're doing. Like, just hit that button and, like, see what happens. The worst thing that's going to happen is that you're going to fall flat, and then, okay, what? You have to get up and do something else? Like,
That's
but
exactly.
it's like you're such a testament to that and the things that you've done already. And I know that we share that, like, together, but it's like, I just feel like we're always our worst enemy in that way. Like, we're
Yes.
always the one to get in our way, to
Mhm.
think that we can't do something. I mean, you were kind of talking about how you felt like the pandemic was great for you, and, like, honestly, same for me. I mean, that's where drag was birthed for me. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy to think that we use something so terrible in the world to kind of further what we wanted out of our life. It really made me go inward, like, to
Yeah.
really,
Yeah,
like, be
that's
like,
what it did.
yeah, to be like, what is it that I want? Like, I don't want to work for a corporate anything ever. I want to work for
Mhm.
myself. I want to be a businesswoman.
That's exactly right. And even
Yeah.
if you have to do it by yourself is the thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I mean, kind of to bring it back to earlier, that's the thing that is so, I think that's the message that's going to last from what's been happening the past few weeks with you, is that you are not afraid to just keep going by yourself. So, like, all of this noise is just temporary, and it's not going to matter in the long run
Right.
because you're not doing it to appease them in the first place.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it's the same idea that at the end of the day, we have to be our own advocate and we
Hmm.
have to be our own source of motivation.
Right.
And I'm just so happy you and I have that in common.
I know.
Truly.
And I like get frustrated when people don't have that.
It
I
drives
think
me nuts
it drives
now.
me crazy.
Even though I was in that space, it also drives me nuts.
Yeah, because I'm just like, sometimes, I mean, my days are crazy. Like,
hmm
I'm answering emails, I'm answering phone calls, I'm replying to DMs,
Yeah.
I'm doing, like, my own marketing, I'm doing everything by myself. And, like, it frustrates me when I can't get one person that I'm, like, working with on a show to, like, just do something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, I can, like, run circles around you. And it's not for me to be like, well, I'm better than you. It's not that kind of energy. It's just like, wow, like, sometimes I feel like people just can't tap into their, like, work ethic sometimes, and that's like
hmm
always such a thing that, like, gets under my skin. I'm like, ugh,
Yeah,
work.
and like more so like the people that they could be doing this for themselves, but that they don't feel deserving of it.
Yeah.
That's the thing that drives me crazy. Is
Yeah.
like you have to. I mean, I say this all the time. My friend Drew hates it. I say all the time, we are all getting microwaved alive right now. We should probably do whatever the hell we want to do.
While we're here.
We are
Yeah.
getting microwaved alive right now. We are all literally dying right now. And that is morbid, but it makes me feel better in a way.
Yeah.
Or not better, maybe, but it makes me feel more motivated to get shit done.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and, like, speaking of motivation, like,
Yeah.
what do you feel like for you personally, like, are the things that truly motivate you to do these projects
Mm.
or motivate you to, I don't know, just get out of your own way and execute things? Like, do you have certain like aspects in your life or whatever that you tap into that kind of help with your motivation, or what does that look like?
Yeah, I think a lot like you. This is yet another thing that we have in common. This
Okay,
is
so we're
this is why
figuring
I'm the
out.
weird uncle in the House of Cash. But I truly, especially the older I get, I think it is like the younger queer kids.
Yeah.
I mean, last year, kind of the thing, this reminded me of this. You had this experience last year where you went to a school, and
Mm.
I think it was a middle school
Middle
or high
school, yeah.
school, middle school. And you talked to kids, and it was not just queer kids or anything, it was like just kids,
Mm-hmm.
but you had this visibility,
Mm-hmm.
and that it made a difference for some of those kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think back to when I was like a kid or a teenager, and I had like a little TV that I won at Dave and Buster's, and it was like a radio, and every night at 10:30 I had to be in bed because I was like a kid.
Right.
But I would like go under my comforter, turn on the little TV, and I would watch Will and Grace, and I was so comforted by seeing like Jack McFarland on the screen and be like, that's someone that's like me.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, of course, kids have way much more representation than we ever had at their
Absolutely.
age, which
Yeah.
makes me just sound old. I know. It just makes it sound like a boomer. But at the same time, I know that it's also really privileged that, I live in a big city.
Mm-hmm.
I talk to a group of people and I associate with groups of people that their kids are going to grow up with gay representation and available to them.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it makes me feel good that with Lucas, for example, that's like a book that if some kid in the middle of nowhere, Oklahoma or Arkansas, can
Mm-hmm.
have access to that. And like, it's available for free on Kindle. I truly did not do that with the intention of making money. I have no desire to be a professional author.
Right.
And for me, it's like having just one more thing that's accessible to those kids
Mm-hmm.
is probably, I would say, number one motivation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's certainly not the money for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's the important part of what I'm doing and with drag too, is the
Yeah.
fact that it's never really been about me. And I say this in my shows that I host, and
Mm-hmm.
I say this all the time. Like, what I'm doing in this chapter of my life is so much bigger than me. Like, and I say that meaning like I don't go into it with intentions of making money. Of course this is my full-time job. Of
Yeah.
course this is like what I'm doing now with my
Mm-hmm.
life. And yeah, is the money great? Yeah, it keeps me fed and keeps a roof over my head, but it's not my heart. My heart is, like you touched on, was like going to that middle school last year, and like
Yes.
I was up on stage as a drag artist talking to middle school and high schoolers, and all I could think of in that moment was like, wow, like I never in my wildest dreams, being a middle schooler, high schooler myself,
I
would
know.
have thought that I would be standing in front of that age group talking to them. And like the questions that they had, and like it just took me back to a time when I didn't really know who I was, or I was figuring myself out.
Yeah.
And I was like, I knew that I was queer. I knew that I was, on this different path than a lot of other people around me, but I didn't have that same representation. And like these kids were like asking like, how do I this like one of these questions just gets me every time, but it's like they were like, how do I make my parents love me? And like
Yeah.
those are the kinds of questions that now I'm getting as an adult, that it's like, whoa, like that's heavy, and it's like honestly, the only response to that is just to keep being yourself, to keep
Mhm.
walking in your authenticity, being that person that you were created to be. Like
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest lesson that you can teach a parent who may be, not accepting of you or
Yeah.
whatever, is just
Mm-hmm.
like, if you just keep being you, they're either going to get on the bus or they're going to get off. And either way, you're still going to prevail with whatever it is that you're doing,
Well, and that's exactly from earlier. Yes, everyone wants their parents to support them and to love them. And at the end of the day, the number one person that you need to make sure is supporting you is yourself.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's really all the same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. I think that's exactly it.
Well, and so I know like we've talked about this just like hanging out before, but
Mm-hmm.
what do you feel like, or where do you feel like you get your creativity from? Like, I know that we're both creatives and we go
Yes.
crazy if we're not
Yes.
creating something, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, where, I guess, to you, where do you draw that creativity from? Is there something that just like speaks to you and you're suddenly like tapped in, or like kind of where does that come from, do you think?
For me, it's always been a matter of escapism, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've always like done it as a way to check out.
Yeah.
I don't want to say like dissociate, but basically to dissociate, girl. And I don't know,
Yeah.
recently, especially after like actually really during writing the second book or the memoir,
Mm-hmm.
I've come to realize that I just believe that being like a human on this planet, half of the greatness of that is everything that's real. So like everything that we get to see
Mm-hmm.
or everything that we get to hear, everything we get to feel, smell, talk to people, the relationships we get to form with real people,
Mm-hmm.
that's like half the joy of being alive.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of people underestimate the other half of what we are able to do as humans,
Right.
which is like be creative, use
Yeah.
your imagination, or even not even just creating, but also like remembering or planning for the future, dreaming.
Yeah.
And so for me, it comes from sincerely just like in adoring that I get to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Inherent, like the inherent joy of doing it.
Yeah, and that's like such an important thing to touch on too, is the fact that it's like you get to do that. Like
Yeah.
it's like almost saying like this is a reward to myself, you know, that I like
Yes.
am able, I'm healthy, I'm just like in this place where I can do these things, you know? And like
Mm-hmm.
for me sometimes I if I'm being completely open and honest, there have been times where my account has been in the red and I'm still making moves that I have no business making. And like
Right.
that's like the kind of mindset that you almost have to have sometimes, is like I know that right now so much of what I'm doing and so much of my life is an investment, and obviously it does take money, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to let the times that I have 10 cents in my bank account stop me from being a creative and keep me from like doing the things that I want to do. And so many people, I think, use, you know, money as an excuse, or use like, you know, just little things here and there to kind of detour them from going on their path. And I think
Yeah.
if more people just focused on what that path was for them, then it wouldn't, everything else would just not matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's
In its own
also
way.
like having 10 cents in the bank mentally
Right.
is or like confidence wise,
Right.
a lot of people just don't think that there's so many people like after the books came out or
Hmm.
the book came out or the songs came out or whatever,
Yeah.
that are like, how do you do that, like how where did you learn to do that, or like, they're like stunned that I did it, but I don't think it's because they're stunned that I like had the capability to do it.
Right.
I think they're stunned just because even if they want to do it, they just don't feel like they're allowed to.
To do it.
But
Yeah.
that's the thing, is like just like you're entitled to see and hear and exist physically, I think everyone's entitled to create.
Absolutely.
So I want more people to do it.
Right. So we're telling you to
So we're telling
create.
you to do it right now. This is your sign. Did you
This
need a
is your
sign?
sign.
Here it
Create.
is. Do it today. Start today. Write one sentence. Take one picture.
Yes,
Yeah.
that for sure. And it's such a huge piece of life that like I know for you and for me, like
Mm-hmm.
it brings so much joy. Like
Yeah.
yeah, the process is gritty and grimy and sometimes very hard to get to the finished product, as we know, but it's like all that work when you finally get to the end is like that was so worth it, you know? And it's like if more people just focused on kind of what their end goal
Mm.
was and take steps to get there, it would be so amazing in that way,
I
for
look at
sure.
this sign and I think, wasn't it worth it?
Yeah,
Girl,
absolutely.
wasn't it worth it? I mean, Jesus.
Yeah. So I know like your memoir is another like big thing that's going to
Mhm.
be like coming out, and like it's a big piece of you, and just
Yeah.
you know you've spent so much time and effort. And I remember seeing your stories where you were like it had the word count and like just everything that you've put into this. So like I guess maybe a little bit if what you want to give about the memoir, and then also like what do you want people to know from reading it about you, like what do you want them to gain from this kind of.
Well, the crazy thing is, when I started it in March, it was going to be like a campy cocktail hour thing. Because when I was talking to my friend Chelsea on that conversation in March, I was like, "Ugh, well, girl, like, you remember the story about when I did this with this guy, and like, that was a waste of time. Or when I was like doing this, and then I learned the hard way about this. And I was going to be really about just campy lessons that you would
Yeah.
tell over cocktails.
Yeah.
But in throughout writing it, it really ended up being about surviving grief
Mm.
and just
Mm.
a death that was really close to me, and the roller coaster of surviving it, and my tailspin after it happened. And so I think that the big thing that people would probably take away from it is anyone who's ever survived like a death
Mm. Mm-hmm.
and grief, but also like learning about yourself from that, and um, turning it into a learning experience, and learning how to balance grieving and moving on, and the lessons about attachment. It's also like a book that's
Wow.
really about
Mm-hmm.
attachment. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that a lot of, especially gay men, like, we've talked about this before.
Right.
It's like, and I think this for the girls and the gays, I guess. Men are crazy.
And the thems and the
And the
theys,
thems
baby.
and the days. But it's like, so it's a lot about
Yeah.
relationships and attachment.
Yeah.
Hopefully it will come out later this year.
Yeah.
But this is actually going to be like a whole new frontier for me. And this is why when we were going to be doing the podcast, the memoir was the reason why I was like, I can't do it right now. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is happening so fast, and it's happening, like, it's coming out, and like I need to focus on it. And
Right.
thank God you were so understanding, and you're like, that's okay, I could just do it by myself. And I was like, yes, you absolutely can. I love that. I will be your first guest. I love that. I support that.
Yeah.
But this go round, I think I want to try to get published.
Yeah.
So maybe this can be a time capsule. We'll see a year from now if it has come to fruition. But that's like what I'm manifesting right now.
Absolutely.
So the manifesting continues.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Well, and like I feel, and so also, what do you have a title? You have a title for it, correct?
It's going to be called A Mural in Space.
A Mural in Space. Yeah.
But, yeah.
So everyone be watching out for.
Keep your eye out.
Keep your eye out for
Yeah.
that too.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing. I think that it's so cool that you've been able to journey on the journey you've journeyed upon, and just go through all the different levels of life as we all journey through, and like
Oh.
to be able to get to this point where you're like, yeah, I can write this, like
Yeah.
people have been telling me for years, like, you should write a book, and
You
it's
truly
like,
should.
I'm like, one day I will, but let me do a few other things before I'm ready to write a book.
Yeah, well, you truly should.
I mean, I would love to.
And I
I
will
would love
help
to.
you any
Yeah.
way I can,
Yeah.
because you truly should.
Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely love to. I think that would be great.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so be watching out
Be
for
watching
a mural
out.
in space,
Watch
and you're
out.
hoping for later this year. That's
Let's
what we're
hope.
hoping for.
I mean,
yeah.
these things, I think they take a long time.
Yeah.
And if I get impatient enough, I'll probably just do it myself, because that's what we do
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the goal. It's done.
Yeah.
So now we just wait and see.
So I have a deeper question for you.
Oh God.
I know.
Okay.
Let's get
Ask it.
like a little deep before we come to like our closer end. But
Okay.
what do you feel like now, after journeying through your 20s and partying and, drinking and, becoming sober, no choice, but you just decided that was kind of what you wanted to do, and
Yeah.
and now being on this journey of writing, like, what would you say to kind of like encompass kind of your whole journey up until now, that would just kind of like bring it all together to who you are, and like just to, I don't know, almost like you're speaking to a younger version of you, but also like it could be the version that's sitting here now. Like, what would you feel like kind of encompasses all that you are, I guess?
I think, I mean, if you're talking about like the biggest lesson that I would tell my younger self,
Yeah.
it would truly be the thing about the permission.
Yeah.
You don't need anyone's permission but yours.
Right.
I think, and I still see friends my age have this, like, wanting to please their parents.
Right.
And I'm very fortunate that in a lot of ways that I just have never really held that too much importance.
Right.
And I will say, I'll give credit to my parents. They both taught me from a young age that I shouldn't need their approval.
Yeah.
But like whether it's your parents or like your partner,
Yeah.
which is really more upsetting to me than anything, because if you feel like you have
Yeah.
to, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that if so many more people could do things that they really want to do if they would just give themselves permission.
Yeah.
And I am so guilty of it in my 20s, especially,
Yeah.
of not doing things that I wanted to do because I didn't feel like I was allowed.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier said than done, by the way,
Absolutely.
to really have the feeling that you're allowed to do something that you don't feel like. Imposter syndrome
Yeah.
is such a real thing, and it
Mhm.
can get in the way. And so if you can overcome imposter syndrome, I think people will start calling you delusional, which is me and you.
That's absolutely
But
me
what
and
are we
you.
doing?
Yeah.
Everything that we want.
Yeah.
So that would be it.
Yeah.
Be delusional.
And honestly, you kind of have to be.
Be
Like, you kind
delusional.
of have to be a little bit, because I think that that's honestly what brings the things that you really want closer to you.
Yeah.
I know that sounds crazy, but like I've been noticing that in myself. And like this girl, random story, just like really quick, but this girl the other day, I met her randomly, and we just hit it off instantly. And then she started telling me about different things in her life. And like before we ended our conversation, like she gave me like, I'm not like the biggest person that has like crystals and stuff in my house, but
Yeah.
like she gave me one, and she was like, I I found this, I think she told me like in Kenya or somewhere, like where some kind of major movie was filmed. I can't remember the exact movie, but she had this crystal, and she was like, I'm just feeling like led to give it to you. And she was like, I just want you to know that this specific one, whatever it is supposed to protect negative energies from like surrounding you. And
Wow.
it's crazy, like to your point, and to kind of sum up that whole aspect, is like whenever you really just decide that like I don't need anyone's permission, I can be as delusional as I want to
Yes.
be, suddenly all these forces start coming
Mhm.
towards you that like attract everything that you want. And it does take you have to be a little delulu, let's
You
be
have to
honest.
be Delulu. Be Delulu.
Yeah.
That's my advice.
Absolutely.
Be Delulu.
Absolutely. Well, do you have like anything else that you're dying to ask me while you're here with me, just on this lovely couch?
I mean, besides House of Cash, besides the podcast,
Yeah.
is there anything that you're ready to spill the tea about? I know you have plans, but
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously bigger dreams that I have,
Mhm.
like I want to do, I want the bigger platforms. I want
Yeah.
to be able
Yeah.
to, do TV stuff, do movie stuff, do like modeling even. Like there's so
Oh
many
yeah.
different aspects of my career that I still have not even begun to like tap into, but like there is so much. And I think part of, well, when I first started this whole cash journey, I never really had like a drawn out plan. I had ideas.
Yeah.
But now as it's going on and getting bigger and growing, it's just like all these things start coming to mind that I want
Mhm.
now. And it's like I feel like I truly am almost building this empire, or starting to now, which
Yeah.
is like something that I never really would have thought. I thought like, yeah, I'll do drag, I'll be a sickening entertainer, I'll like, do the shows, work at the bars, but like I'm also at a place now where like I don't even like I enjoy doing stuff like this, like the
Yeah.
conversational stuff. I do a lot of private events, so like I love doing that. Like I like doing things that are a little bit outside of the norm, and like not having to always be in a bar. Obviously,
Yeah.
we're surrounded by like having to do that a lot of the times, but yeah, there's a lot of dreams, a lot of goals, a lot of aspirations, and I think I'm a little delusional enough to make them all happen.
I think you are. This is the first I'm hearing about modeling, but I'm obsessed with that idea.
Yeah, yeah.
And personally, I would love to see a return to music this year.
Oh yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I feel like it might be possible.
I feel like it could be a possibility. I like, music has been such a huge part of my life, as you
Yeah.
know, and then we did Let's Mambo Poppy together, and so it's like, yeah, I would love to do more music. Some of the demos that you have written and sent me, I'm obsessed with. So yes, America, stay
No
tuned.
spoilers.
No spoilers,
Yeah.
but there might be more music on the way.
Good.
But last thing that I want to ask everyone as they're like, on this podcast, and just kind of just to wrap it all up, I think is
Yeah.
my little slogan, that I'm kind of journeying with is like, this is obviously called Cash Talks, right? So like
Yes.
for you in your life, if you had something that speaks to you, or you had the money to make something happen, or whatever that looked like
Ooh.
how would cash talk in your life? Like how would that manifest itself? And it doesn't have to be like a purchasing of anything. It could just be anything that comes to mind. Like how would it speak for you?
Well, if I had the means to make any dream come true, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Well, I would just own 51% of my own company. 99%, 100%.
100%.
I would do, ooh, I'm like, would I publish books? Would I publish music? I would help other people publish their shit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's what I would do.
Yeah. And you're so good at that already. So it's like I could already see that happening for you.
We're manifesting.
We're manifesting a lot of things.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you, Kameron Tyler,
Wow.
for joining me on this very first guest spot.
Wow.
How do you feel?
Honored.
Yeah.
And
no.
also, like, it flew by.
It does.
I mean,
go
we heard
by
it was going to
so
fly by. That
fast.
really, I thought we were like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's way longer than that.
But also, like, tell everyone where they can find you, social media,
I'm on
all the things.
Instagram at Kameron Tyler.
Kameron with a
I'm
K.
real creative with that name, but it is Kameron with a K, Kameron Tyler.
Yes.
Kameron Tyler.
Yeah.
I'm tagged in some more stuff.
Absolutely. You can find us on Spotify as well.
That's right, actually.
You
yeah,
can.
and on Amazon,
Apple
Kindle,
Music, whatever
Audible,
you want.
Apple Music. Yeah.
And now you can find our
And
podcast.
now on Cash Talks is my new home.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight and just like being here to kick this off with me. I can't imagine like doing this very first episode with a guest with anyone but you.
I'm
truly.
so honored, and you have to invite me back. I'm inviting myself back right now.
Oh yeah, you can come back.
Okay.
I will definitely have you back.
Okay.
But thank you all for joining, for being here. We totally enjoyed being able to just open up and have a full-blown conversation about all the things. So we'll see you again soon on another episode of Cash Talks. I was your host, Samora Cash. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Cocky, might be born this way, I'm high.